darlings, welcome to my channel Me and Places. I'm Paulina. So I am studying sexology, and as a part of my graduate project I'm doing a series of videos and podcasts and blog posts about sexuality, and this is my first video about it, so I'm super excited. The purpose of this video is educational, and I am gonna talk about different matters that are connected to sexuality with a goal to debunk some myths. Now, I don't think we always think of these myths consciously as myths, but I think many times we take them as a given truth without questioning. It's like implicit belief about something. And these are things I see again and again and again in my counseling practice, and that is why I really feel like talking about them. So let's start. Myth number one is that sexuality equals sex. What is there to study? I learned sex once and this is it. It's like riding a bicycle, my friend said when I told them what I'm studying. These kind of talks are a taboo in our community, so you will not get clients here. I heard from a company where I asked for practice opportunity. Will you be combining travel with your new venture, sex in unusual locations? This comment I got under my YouTube video where I announced that I will be posting these kind of videos. And yes, thank you dear viewer, I know it was a joke, but these kind of comments are adding to the myth I want to talk about, that's why I mentioned them. The thing is, I think when people hear sexology or sexuality, because sex is included in these words, first thing that comes to their mind is obviously sex. So they probably think I'm studying how to have it, and they probably also think that on counseling sessions we mostly talk about that. In truth, sexuality is a very vast, multidisciplinary field. It includes themes like gender identity, processing your feelings and talking about them, setting and respecting boundaries, attachment, desire, fantasies, skill for intimacy, vulnerability, and also the relationships we have with our own bodies. And these are just small parts of all the themes that are connected to sexuality and all the themes we actually discuss on counseling sessions. As you can see, in comparison to the number of these different themes, sex is actually just very small part of it. I think this misunderstanding of sexuality is quite historical as well, because in 1905, in Freud's essay, he revealed how vast and kind of complex sexuality is, what are all the themes it includes, such as sensations, desires, experiences, emotional bonds. And he also said this is something all humans have from very first moment. And back then people went nuts, like what? Children have sexuality? What the hell? Because probably the word they hear should not be connected with infancy. Nowadays, this is not big news. In psychology, in development psychology, we all know that sexuality is something all human beings have, because sexuality does not mean explicitly sex. It means all those other things I told you. Things like attachment style develop very early on in the family you're being raised in or with your caregivers. The relationship you will develop with your own body. Will you like it? Will you love it? How will you care for it? Those kind of things start to develop very early. And so basically sexuality is something all humans have from very beginning until very end, no matter of age. So we are inherently sexual human beings throughout all our lifespan. And sexual counseling helps with things like understanding oneself, navigating relationships, and fostering intimacy. So, even though the word sex might dominate public perception of sexology, it's actually a very complex, multidisciplinary, multi-layered issue with many themes that evolve around sexuality. It's about human connection, self-expression, growth, and many other things. As you can imagine now, the majority of things I study are not about sex itself, and the majority of things we discuss on sexual counseling are not about sex itself. Only a small part is. Myth number two is that porn also equals sex. And it doesn't. Now, I'm not very judgy towards this one, because I truly believe that the majority of people my age or older did not get proper sexual education. At least I did not. In my elementary school, sex education was more about contraception. So how not to get diseases, how not to get unwanted kids, and how not to die, basically. Now, these are very important things to know, but them alone do not get you ready for the complexity of sexual life. Now, when I imagine a well-grounded sexual education, I think it should involve themes like building a good, positive relationship with your own body, gender identity, learning about different types of relationships people can have, learning how to set, keep, and respect boundaries, knowing how to communicate about your desires and limits. It should include matters of trust. All these things are like in the base of our sexual life, so it's really surprising none of that was part of my sexual education in elementary school. And if your school was anything like mine, probably your teacher also did not touch these themes at all. So I don't judge people who turn to porn in terms of sexual education. I mean, you gotta get the information somewhere, right? The challenge is that porn is not made to educate. It is made to stimulate a fantasy and to entertain. When you understand that, porn can be a fun tool that serves you for a specific purpose, for inspiring ideas, for going through some kind of fantasy you might have, for enhancing arousal or achieving the release, all those kind of things, as a tool. But when you approach it as kind of the ideal way in which sex should happen, I can assure you that will bring a lot of pressure and anxiety into one's sex life. So as a tool, it can be fun and it can be one part of many in one's sex life. But if you take it as an example, very often you will start to compare. Do you look same? Do you sound same? Do you perform same? And in most cases you won't. It's a polished product done by multiple people who have editing process, who had preparations, and we don't usually see that. We don't see the preparations, we don't see the cut out scenes. So it's kind of even weird, if you think of it logically, to try to reenact same thing that people got ready for with help of many professionals and just do that spontaneously on your own and make it look and sound like that. Why would we do that? That will logically leave many people disappointed. Thankfully, I think there has been a shift in the industry because of the home porn, because of the ethical porn, which is getting kind of more popular and usually focuses on more kind of realistic approach to how sex happens. People, in many cases, still compare their sex lives to this glossy picture and get really sad and disappointed and not satisfied if it doesn't look same. Belief number 3, I think many people subconsciously kind of have or follow, is the idea that good sex just happens on its own, just like boom, bam, and it's there. Many people tend to believe that in a loving relationship, good sex is just a given thing. It just has to be good if you love each other. Sometimes they take it even further, that if sex is not great, that means the love is over. The reality is luckily far more nuanced. You can totally have a loving relationship and still struggle with your sex life, just like vice versa. Satisfying sex can require a lot of skills. Setting boundaries, respecting them, fostering vulnerability, being present, being in the moment. It can involve different kind of preparations as well, some tools or gadgets or clothes, light, smells, anything that contributes to a good, cool experience. Now, these things are just small parts of everything that can be included in a good sex, but they already demonstrate how deliberate effort and intention is an important and big part of a good sexual experience. Many sexologists I read and watched and follow are surprised by how much effort and time we put into our hobbies and how we really never do that for our sex life. And I started to think, I do like mountain hiking, for example. If you follow my channel, that's not big news for sure. In Finland, we don't really have mountains. We have like few mountains, but technically it's not a mountain. So naturally my kind of interest towards the hike rises at the moment I get to know that I will have vacation, so I will have possibility to go to the mountains. That moment I start planning the trip, I start googling the possible routes, I check them on Google Earth, and when I'm there virtually with Google Earth, for example, I imagine being there and I already usually have like shiver down my skin at this point. Then starts the real preparation, getting the right hiking boots, the right clothes, the right gear, and taking care of, for example, safety in advance, so that when I am there, I can be more present, I can be in the moment. I would not need to worry about small things like that. If I have snacks or enough water, or if my compass works. And when I'm finally there, when I can feel the rocks under my feet and the sweat running down my face, I'm usually looking terrible, but I'm so happy. I'm like the happiest person at that moment. And I usually have this kind of dumb smile, not connected to anything, just walking, looking terrible and being like, oh, this is awesome. This is the best. And no matter how I plan this and how much I imagine it beforehand, the real experience when I'm actually there, it always tops my expectations. And I started to think it is kind of weird we don't put same kind of effort and enthusiasm and inspiration into our sex life, even though we're very used to do that with our hobbies. Why do we hesitate to do so? I think part of the problem is that just culturally and historically we had so much taboos around this topic that even when we want to do something, we don't really know what and how to even talk about it. We don't have words for that, we don't have framework for that. And so I think that it's not that people don't want to take this responsibility, I think they just really don't know how to. We just don't have much experience to know what to do and how to do this. And also all these things you kind of need for a good sex: intimacy, boundary setting, vulnerability, being present, being in the moment, being curious, being excited, trying new things possibly. All those things might sound like harder things to develop than just getting new hiking boots. But as a person who hiked few mountains, I can tell you picking right hiking boots is really hard. It's really not easy. So I think in many cases building those kind of things in yourself you need for a good sex is actually easier. And I'm talking from a very blister-filled experience, believe me. Another barrier why we hesitate to put so much effort into our sex life, I think, is also the mass media, the love stories we see in movies, the love stories we read about in the books, all that passionate love we hear about in the songs. All that, I think, also shaped our belief that if it's good, it should be spontaneous, it should be just kind of happening on its own. Nobody ever prepares for that, nobody ever talks about that, nobody asks for consent, it just happens and it's always great if you're in love. That's not how things are. In fact, I think in many movies and books, the relationship types that are romanticized are not very healthy even. I think they are often based on anxious attachment and even codependency and different kind of trauma bonding things. If based on all that we learn that this is how true passionate love should be, or true passionate good sex should be, I don't think this is beneficial to anybody. Because after many years of that, when this doesn't work, you will have to get a lot of help to relearn, do things differently, think about things differently, and behave differently. Putting effort into preparation, talking about it, setting boundaries, asking, being curious, trying things. I don't think they're part of our everyday usually until we actually make effort to make it part of our everyday, if you know what I mean. So the thing I really want to say with this point is that it's not weird, it's definitely not shameful, and it's not stupid to put effort into a good sex life. In fact, it totally makes sense to ask, to learn, to get tools, to try things. This is how you get anything good and interesting and inspiring. Myth number 4 is that just saying a word is enough. Let me explain. Counselors, psychologists, therapists very often say that communication is a key for a good relationship. And I will be a parrot here and say, yeah, it really is. Sorry, people who really don't want to communicate. Sorry to myself included, I don't like to talk much, which is hard to tell based on these videos probably. But communication is, of course, essential. The thing is, I want to talk about the cases when we do communicate, but we have very different perception of what we communicated. I think we kind of naturally believe that other people share same experiences, same reality, same understanding, but they don't. We can experience same thing and have very different perception of that. And in a case when one word can mean different kinds of experiences, you really need to specify what you mean when you say it, because the person can understand it in their own way. For example, sex as a happening can mean so many different things for different people. It can be a fun game. Let's play, let's try toys, let's have fun, let's, be curious and not worry if we look stupid. Or it can be passionate thing when you really let go and you let your kind of feelings and instincts take control, and then it feels good. Or it can be dominant submission game. Or it can be emotional bond, something that feels sacred, something that feels on another level. All those things can be sex for different people. In fact, they can be good sex for the same person in a different times of their life, or in a different moment, or maybe with a different person. But the thing is, when you just say, hey, let's have sex, and your partner says, sure, what might happen is that you didn't really agree on the same thing here. And this is not just about sex, this is about any word that can have these different kind of meanings for different people. For example, having a serious relationship can mean so many different things. So when you agree with somebody that, hey, let's have a serious relationship starting now, you can be agreeing on different things. So you really need to specify what it means for you, what it means in everyday life, what makes it serious for you, because different things might make it serious for the other person. Same with friends with benefits or open relationships or whatever relationships you are having. So because very often people talk about dating, sex and relationships without specifying what it means for them, when they say at a counseling session, yeah, we talked about that, I really need to find out, did they really talk about that? My next point number 5, kind of derives from the previous one, but it's one level deeper. Please bear with me, I think this is important to mention, and I will explain you why. So the point number 5 is that when you get a consent for a deed, it does not mean a consent for intention. Let me tell you what I mean. Let's imagine a person who got humiliated at their workplace. Maybe that boss shouted on the worker in front of other people in some kind of important meeting or something. Let's just imagine some kind of situation at work where a worker had humiliating experience. That person comes home to a partner, and maybe that person feels very down, like their ego is on the edge of being destroyed. They feel like that. And maybe they know a way to bring their ego back to feel powerful again. And maybe that way could be dominating in sex. And so they come home and they tell to their partner, hey, let's have sex. And the partner goes, yeah, I'm up for that. But they never said they are up for fixing your ego through this kind of sex where you can dominate, right? And this is exactly what I want to talk about. Let's imagine a different situation. Let's imagine a person who feels disoriented, who feels like they are experiencing difficult negative emotions that they don't have really tools to deal with besides having sex. That makes them relax. That makes them in control of their feelings again. That makes the bad thoughts go away, and that brings the relief from the bad thoughts. So basically this is their way to regulate their emotions. And if that person asks their partner if they want to have sex, and if the partner says yes, they never really agreed to regulate emotions of the other person through this kind of event. And they never agreed to take response for fixing emotional state of the other person. I'm not sure if these are good examples, if they actually say what I want to say. I can also tell I watched a TV show that's called Special. I watched it on Netflix, and in that show the main character is a disabled gay man. In one of the episodes, the main character finds a guy to go on a date with. They end up having sex, and after that the main character feels kind of bad. And the thing is, the person with whom he had sex had a fetish on disability. And as I already said, the main character has a disability. There was not a moment where the person asked or said, hey, I have this fetish for this. Is this okay for you? Nobody asked that. So obviously the person feels used and bad, but they're not exactly sure why. And these all examples are just examples of many ways in which people think when they ask for a deed and get consent for that, it kind of implies a consent for the intention they have. But it doesn't. And why I think it's important to mention this thing is because in many cases it explains why a person feels uneasy. There were no deeds that they didn't agree to that happened, but it still kind of feels weird and off and bad. So in that case, the thing might be that intention with which the deed was made was not agreed on. Nobody asked consent if you want to participate in this kind of story. And when nobody asked but just took it from you, it's okay to feel used. That's a very logical reaction. I'm not sure if I explained what I wanted to. Please let me know if this sounds like it makes sense to you, if you get what I mean. If you have any examples you want to share, I will really appreciate it. And as usual, I will keep my comments as a safe space under this kind of sexual educational videos. If you met any kind of myths or beliefs that people just take as a granted truth considering sexuality and you want to talk about them, maybe you're fed up with them, maybe you want to debunk them, also please let me know in the comments. I also wrote a blog post about this same topic. If you want to read it, the link is in the description below. This is it. Thank you so much for watching and listening and staying with me. I am really interested in hearing your thoughts as well, and see you again. Bye!